If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is Bruce McGuire back again with another logical analysis in the realm of flat Earth. This is an interview with Mark Sargent. I've covered one of his other interviews with Viva Frey, and you can check that one out if you want. It was quite amusing, and once again, if you haven't listened to any of the MINDSHOCK flat Earth analysis, disclaimer, I am not a flat earther. I am not advocating flat earth theory. I am advocating logic and reason. So people accidentally believing in something that may or may not be true, if they're right. So again, anything with a positive or a negative, not to fall for black and white fallacies. If the earth is neither a sphere or globe or flat, and it's something else entirely, then both of these camps are incorrect. But the point is, that aside, if you're looking at something with a 50-50 chance of being right, you can accidentally guess it without being logical, without being scientific. So what I do on these logical analyses, which of course Flat Earth is excellent for developing logic, because you can see whether an argument has validity or not, what logical fallacies are being fallen for, are the people purporting to be on the side of science actually on the side of scientism. So in a way, this has nothing to do with flat or globe Earth. It's simply looking at the differences between coincidence theorists and conspiracy theorists, aka critical thinkers, and whether or not coincidence theorists even understand the conspiracy being alleged, which most of the time they don't. Most of the time they're so triggered, they just spin out with cognitive dissonance and all of these biases and have to default to faith and fallacies, often with amusing results. That's why I have postulated in the past that flat earth theory might actually be a psyop, but for the wrong reasons. Is there some kind of concerted effort just to push forward discord, just civil unrest, by causing people to believe the earth is flat by using such poor defenses? Because it's hard to believe that supposed NASA scientists and all of these academics are putting forth such poor arguments for the globe when legitimate arguments do exist. Again, whether the argument is legitimate or not, obviously, we have the fallacy. We have all these things. It doesn't mean something is true or untrue, but at least is the line of inquiry legitimate? Is the reasoning sound for these arguments? And that is what we are exploring today. Today we're looking at the Studio 10 interview with Mark Sargent. It is titled Debunking the Flat Earth Conspiracy Theory. So, of course, right over there you have extreme bias, circular reasoning, logical fallacies, etc. So we know what we're in for. But the quick description here, astrophysicist Brad E. Tucker faces off with flat earther Mark Sargent over the flat earth conspiracy theory, as opposed to over the shape of the earth, which would be a little bit more accurate. Anyway, as always, if you enjoy MINDSHOCK, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through, or you can just go to youtube.com/MINDSHOCK and manually peruse the MINDSHOCK catalog, including the most mind-shocking topics and logical analyses, conspiracy theories, paranormal, and true crime cases, with logic and reason at the forefront, not faith and fallacies, which is pretty much all you see on the mainstream media. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. You could also check us out, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analyses, requests, co-podcasters. You could also be a guest on the podcast yourself, depending on your tier. And if you like this particular podcast, hit that like button, share it across social media platform. Let's bring logic and reason back to the world, not frantically and desperately grasping to one model over another, or just having this silly and illogical desperation to be on Team A versus Team B. Sheep-minded thinking or lack thereof. So let's jump in.
Walking around on Earth, you notice that it looks and feels flat, and this has led to millions around the globe to believe that the world is flat. The Flat Earthers movement is documented in the Netflix movie Behind the Curve. It's today's conspiracy theory that we're tackling as part of our Conspiracy Week series, and we have people from both sides. We have Flat Earther Mark Sargent, who joins us live from Seattle, as well as our space expert, Brad E. Tucker. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Mark, let's go to you first.
So, again, this is part of their conspiracy week where they're tackling conspiracy. Sounds like damage control for the establishment. And of course, mainstream media just puppets for establishment thinking, dogma of the past. And let's see what they bring forward here.
What exactly is the flat Earth model?
Sure. The Flat Earth model says that we are not living on this little blue globe flying through space at incredible velocities in an impossible universe. We are living on a stationary...
So right there on the bottom, they have a little disclaimer, flat or round. We debunk the flat Earth theory, as opposed to logically, neutrally, scientifically examine evidence for and against whatever theory. So they made it very, very clear that they're just mouthpieces for establishment dogma and scientism here, just in case it wasn't already obvious.
flat, round disc that is covered by a dome, and it's, despite what your model says there, it's not floating in space. It could be sitting anywhere. It could be sitting on my desk right now.
So again, their propaganda, they have this 3D rendering, again, appeal to incredulity logical fallacy, where they're trying to make it so silly. They're trying to pretend that flat earthers believe that the earth is flat within the cosmological system of the mainstream establishment, where there's space and all this. Now they have some kind of weird stalactites coming from the circular earth, which again, some flat earthers believe it's an infinite plane. So there is this intellectual dishonesty, or just Hanlon's razor, where it's just sheer stupidity, where they don't understand the flat earth model and they develop this CGI rendering to make it look stupid as a result of them not even understanding what the model is and the lack of mental capacity to do so. Or do they fully understand what the flat earthers are alleging and they're just being deceitful and dishonest to peddle their propaganda? But would they even need to go to such lengths if it really were that obvious what the shape of the earth is? Without resorting to faith or fallacies, of course.
There you go.
And Mark, when did you first come across the flat earth theory, or is it something you developed yourself?
No, I didn't invent the flat earth theory.
Wait, was that a serious question? They think Mark Sargent invented the flat earth theory in 2015? Oh man, we're in for some goofiness if it keeps going this way.
By any stretch. I looked into it in 2014, and like most people in the flat earth theory, I tried to disprove it and thought I could shoot it down in a weekend. And 9 months later, I created something called Flat Earth Clues, which was a series of videos that asked the internet hive mind, hey, tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I made a mistake here. And that was in the beginning of 2015. And 4 years later, we have we've got 9 conferences this year. We have a documentary, tons of podcasts, and we're growing like crazy.
So actually, I'd just like to interrupt here. Like, one of the points here is that you're communicating to us via satellite and via a round globe.
You're communicating to us. Communicating.
So this educated guy interrupts to fallaciously state, and we'll get into why it's fallacious in a moment, but he wanted to jump in. He wanted to play gotcha and make Mark Sargent look stupid instead of having a good faith discussion. And that's important to note here. So he's automatically looking to these intellectually unless he's really that dumb, but let's see how this unfolds.
Right? There is no way for your signal to get here right now to our studio via a flat surface.
There's no way for the signal to get to the studio except on a spherical globe. You cannot do any communicating via flat ground. All right, let's see how Mark Sargent responds here.
Unless most of the communications are done with fiber optics in the water, which they are. Satellites, by the way, I don't say that I don't believe in satellites. I'm just saying that the NASA high-altitude balloon program, which has been going on since the 1950s, can carry a lot more bandwidth and a lot more payload than rockets ever could.
That's right, and I work on that project, thank you. And in fact, you know what, we actually had someone, so Felix Baumgartner.
Wait, okay, so you can see how triggered this guy is. So he says, that's right. So he's admitting that Mark Sargent is correct? So did he just admit he was a moron for bringing up the fact that communication can only happen via spherical globe? So he completely, again, glosses over the fiber optic communication network laid underwater, which, of course, I don't know what the exact percentage is, 90-something%. The majority of communications all occurs by these cables. So did he just agree that he was a complete fool for bringing up the point, trying to interrupt and play gotcha? And you could see just from his micro expressions that he was getting worried when Mark Sargent actually knew what he was talking about. Again, I'm not talking about knew what he was talking about in terms of the shape of the Earth. I am not alleging that in any way, but knew what he was talking about in terms of general technology, communication, just basic science. Because I guess he automatically assumed Mark Sargent was just going to be this illiterate goofball with no points whatsoever, because why would he believe in a flat earth? Whatever. But this guy got so triggered, his only response there was, that's right, I actually worked on that program. So he's so insecure. He is so desperate to be seen as some kind of scientism priest authority that his ego couldn't handle that Mark Sargent, a flat earther, just made him look like a silly moron on national television in Australia. So he had to grasp at these straws, desperately proving how insecure and silly he is. And now he immediately does this hard pivot to Felix Baumgartner. He completely abandons the communication argument, and he goes to Felix Baumgartner. So some guy doing some kind of high altitude jump, that's his go-to when he's made to look silly. I mean, this guy is a supposed astrophysicist working on NASA program. He can't bring any science to the table. All right, let's see what he says, though.
Felix Baumgartner, he was this, essentially NASA got a crazy Austrian to jump from a large balloon. And one of the cool things in the video you see is he sees the curvature of the Earth from these high altitude balloons. Like you can actually go. You can actually go on right now.
I sent a snapshot of the Felix Baumgartner jump, the Red Bull jump, and it's interesting because the curvature of the Earth from there, from 130,000 feet, is so severe that it means the entire world is about the size of Arizona. And so I also sent a video and the balloon thing, which you just saw. Look, we've got balloon footage at 120,000 feet, which is absolutely flat. So who's right? Felix Baumgartner, severe curvature, or us? And it's not even us that sent up the balloons.
Well, it's me, because I'll show you in a second. I took a photo.
So he's taking all these photos. He's apparently, he said he designed some of this or whatever, and he doesn't know what a fisheye lens is. I mean, this guy is a supposed astrophysicist. I mean, is he just that severely triggered and his cognitive dissonance tripped that hard? Because right out of the gate, he tries to play gotcha with Mark Sargent about communication not being possible. But does he really know? I mean, he must know that, ground positioning systems and all of these underwater cables are the primary method of communication. He must know that, I guess? Or is this just the dumbest astrophysicist they could find? Where, he's not even at a 4-year-old comprehension. If he's genuine, it looks like he's not even at a 4-year-old comprehension. And this is the guy? They want to defend the globe. See, this is why, again, I postulated that this flat Earth psyop, they're coming up with, they're finding the dumbest guys or dumbest arguments. So either the guys know what they're doing and they're being disingenuous, intellectually dishonest, and they're putting forth the silliest, most easily debunked arguments possible in order to drive up flat Earth membership? I mean, is that their goal here? Because this guy doesn't know what a fisheye lens is. I mean, come on, he's never played around with a GoPro. You can play around with a GoPro in your living room, and depending on your lens set, depending on the settings, you can see curvature there as well. or in your backyard. That doesn't mean your living room floor or your backyard, if it's flat, that it's curved. And if this is all he can bring to the table, I mean, this is just sad. This is sad and embarrassing.
A photo
That's the curvature
where you
of the
can
Earth.
see the
That's
curvature. And I think this is the
That's
cool
the curvature
thing.
right there. Sorry, roll that back. That's the curvature of the Earth at 130,000 feet, right there.
Yep.
No, not a chance.
Mark, I've got to ask, have you ever reached the edge of the Earth if it is indeed flat?
And again, this is all just really, really basic, because it seems kind of strange to hinge the entire religion of scientism on this one Red Bull jump with a fisheye lens. Even if it weren't a fisheye lens, you're going to hinge your entire faith-based belief system. Like, let's say that's not a fisheye lens, and that really does appear to show curvature, which, again, you can see how severe it is on both. I mean, it's an obvious fisheye lens. Even establishment mouthpiece Neil deGrasse Tyson, even he didn't sink to the lows. He has a pretty good explanation. I mean, it's a for dummies explanation. When you have a globe that big, I mean, again, just for the moment, let's assume, I don't want the flat earthers to get mad at me here. I'm just assuming for the sake of argument in this moment, as an example, let's say the Earth really is a globe, which let's say it is, and it's 25,000 miles in circumference. It's so big, obviously you wouldn't see the curvature that low to the ground, because that's not really that, out of a 25,000 mile circumference, 100-something thousand feet is not really that much. So the silliness of this astrophysicist, this is all he has to support his argument, and possibly dishonestly claiming that the only way to communicate across great distances, whether globe, flat, I mean, that's irrelevant. I mean, it's irrelevant what shape the Earth is. You can communicate different ways, and all these communication systems would work on either a globe or a flat plane. What's to prevent these high... This astrophysicist is claiming to have worked on the high-altitude balloon program, so he should know how these signals are, but he's pretending not to. He doesn't know about the fiber optic cables? I mean, there's kindergartners who have seen the Discovery Channel programs on how those cables are laid and how they work. I mean, this isn't a secret. So this guy's really sillier than a kindergartner? I mean, this is the guy they picked to defend the globe. It's so weird.
Of the Earth, if it is indeed flat, and is it a little bit like the Truman Show? Have we got sort of, wooden sides to the Earth? I mean, what's there at the edge of the Earth?
What we're talking about here, no, we haven't reached it. Of course not. Antarctica is off limits to everybody but military and military scientists. The edge of the Earth is far beyond our reach. Meaning the Antarctic coastline is just the beginning of the edge. And we are talking about something with walls and a floor and a ceiling, very similar to the Truman Show, which is why I talked about in the documentary and I talked about in my clues, which says that, look, why couldn't it be something like the Truman Show? A planetarium, we can see all sorts of fun lights on the sky. Who's to say when you walk out of a planetarium, you're just not walking into a much bigger one?
So who built the dome, do you think, Mark?
Oh, that's a big question. You really want to give that?
Right,
take
I'd
your
like to
pick.
jump in, right? My friends have been to
First
Antarctica.
off, it definitely wasn't us. It wasn't human beings. Human beings had nothing to do with the construction of this place. At that point, you're really going off into one of two areas, which is, okay, an advanced civilization that's much older than ourselves and much more powerful, or the divine. And take your pick. Really, you're just splitting hairs because one man's advanced technology is another man's deity.
And are we the only flat Earth, or are there other flat planets out there with domes? Has the deity or other civilizations built other flat Earths?
No, that's an excellent question, because first off, we would say that anything you see in the sky are just pretty lights.
And he actually just said that. Who's to say you're not walking out of a planetarium into a much bigger planetarium? So that's the theory that Mark Sargent is alleging. I haven't, obviously, he's not providing that proof for that theory in the moment. He's just explaining it. I don't know if he has definitive proof. I think he himself claims he does not. But these goofballs didn't even listen to what he said. So there's other flat Earths. So I'm not sure how he came. I mean, again, he seemed to kind of be genuine. He didn't seem that triggered or insecure like the astrophysicist Brad E. Tucker goofball, who's just squirming in his seat there. I mean, you could tell how triggered he is that anybody is even questioning the Church of NASA or his religion of scientism is quite silly.
So Venus and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter and all those, I mean, they look spherical, but they're just part of a light show. But could there be other domes and other structures out there? Sure, why not? If I was more powerful enough to build this place, I wouldn't make it a one-off. Not by any stretch. I'd make more than one this.
Sorry, Kate, I just want to do a thought experiment here. So I think we would probably agree that a good cover-up would involve money, right? That someone is paying to cover it up, right?
Lots of money, yes.
Right. So then people would then profit from this cover-up, right? I think that's kind of...
Profit in a way, sure.
Yeah, right. And then so we would say that NASA is complicit in this to some degree, and so they would be the beneficiaries of this, right?
In this case, we're not covering up for profit. We're covering up for power.
And you can see already, like, he thinks he's playing gotcha, like he's even smirking a little bit. Like, he's so silly and insecure. His only purpose here, it's not to even understand the theories Sargent is alleging. It's to defend his church and his faith-based belief systems. But even that, he can't even do that in a professional fashion. It's all, he just wants to play gotcha with Mark Sargent. That's all he wants to do. You can see it's plain and obvious. Now, I'm not sure in what dimension he can't even understand the flat earth conspiracy being alleged. I mean, if NASA's getting $50 to $60 million per day, what do people do for even $100? I mean, you could find somebody, people will kill each other for $5. This guy doesn't think 50 to 60 mil a day plus, I mean, technically the $1 trillion systems all propped up on the deception. If it's true, again, I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying the flat earth theory is true. But if it is true, again, being objective, neutral, not going for these circular reasoning fallacies or any of these other fallacies that these scientism priests have to cling to, since they can't really bring anything else to the table in these media debates. I don't know why they don't actually bring somebody who can, I mean, they're not even bringing, Mark Sargent, again, I don't want to insult Mark Sargent, he seems like a relatively smart guy, but I don't think he's one of the top minds in the world, and I think you would agree with that. He doesn't seem to claim to be a genius of any kind. He's on a basic level. He seems to understand the basic definitions of words. He seems to understand fallacies to a certain extent. And he seems to be able to elucidate certain points in conspiracies, and he understands how conspiracies work, true or untrue, and certain motivations behind them. But this goofball is so triggered, he doesn't even understand the money involved or I mean, does he not understand anything about any conspiracy that was eventually unraveled? Tobacco science, sugar science. I mean, obviously there's benefits, but there's also defending the dogma and status quo. It's all intertwined. I guess he doesn't understand that. I don't know.
So yes,
power's
NASA
money.
would be built. And what I'm saying is the only reason NASA was even built, and by that we're talking about the United States military. NASA is absolutely Department of Defense.
NASA's actually civilian, by the way. You can get a job with NASA. You know that, right?
No.
Wait, what? So whether or not you can get a job somewhere depends on it being civilian or not? What? Wow, this guy's mentally gone. I mean, civilians can get jobs with military all the time too. I mean, you could be a civilian, you're just designated as such. Nobody was stating that NASA only hires military. NASA is clearly a .gov agency. That's why you go to nasa.gov. What does civilians being able to get jobs places have anything to do with anything? I mean, you can get a job at even, there's certain janitors at CIA installations that are civilians. I mean, I'm not sure what his point here is. Whether or not you can get a job somewhere as a civilian, that's his metric. I mean, this guy's sillier than anybody thus far presented as an astrophysicist. Can he really be an astrophysicist being this silly? I don't know.
Afraid not. NASA's
I'm afraid so, because I've worked for them.
Defense. Look, fine.
I just want to finish my...
He's worked for NASA, therefore NASA can't be military. And notice how he keeps interrupting Mark Sargent, not even letting him finish his point. I don't think Mark Sargent was insinuating here that every single, he actually does the opposite in other interviews. Clearly this guy hasn't done any research, but at least let the guy finish his point. He said NASA's military. He didn't say every single individual working at NASA is directly military and in on it. He's actually saying the opposite, but this goofball is so desperate. His ego is so triggered. He's that insecure. He's spinning his wheels so severely, he can't even let Mark Sargent finish the point, so he doesn't even understand what's being alleged. Mark Sargent was not denying that civilians can work at NASA. This straw man that this supposed astrophysicist built and just keeps building up higher, this is the epitome of silliness brought forth by the scientism priest to defend the model, and people are wondering why there's so many flat earthers out there? Really?
I'm going to finish my line of reasoning real quick. So then, if there is money involved, and then people are paid for it, now, if I am saying that the Earth is round, which I very much do because I've seen the photos, and the moon and other things.
So if he's seen photos of Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, that must mean it's real, right? Because photos could never be doctored. So his base metric for anything being true or not true are if there are photos. And he's that bereft of logic and reason, he doesn't understand what conflict of interest is. If a serial killer brings to his trial photos of some kind of an alibi, are you going to believe? I mean, he's the accused. Why would you take evidence from the accused and use that as the metric for determining whether or not the accused is telling the truth? I mean, this level of silliness. I mean, this is why I do some of these logical analyses, because why would anybody trust a scientism priest? I mean, there are scientism priests out there that are actually intelligent and bring forth logical arguments. They're still scientism priests, but at least they have some kind of mental capacity. This guy is saying the Earth is round, which again, I mean, is it a globe? What does round mean? A flat table is round. I mean, this guy's just, he doesn't, when you don't even understand the basic definitions of words, I mean, how severe is this goofball suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect? Because if he's so incompetent, he doesn't understand how incompetent he is. He doesn't have the mental capacity, the wherewithal to see his own incompetence. Then he'll never know, and he'll be this silly forever. And again, that's what the propaganda, scientism propaganda, indoctrinates all of these individuals, these establishment mouthpieces, into the cult of state worship, authority worship, scientism, where they don't question. If NASA is alleged to be part of the conspiracy, you're going to use their photos to prove there's no conspiracy? I mean, come on. Small children wouldn't use that kind of argument.
Then where's my money? Because my 2008 Ford Focus and my mortgage would disagree that I'm profiting from this.
Wait, so he wasn't paid by NASA when he worked at NASA? So he volunteered at NASA? He didn't receive a paycheck? He said before he worked for NASA. So did he work for no paycheck? And how did he afford his Ford Focus? Like, what money? Did that money come from the money tree? Or was he paid that money from his employer? And again, the fundamental so this is actually the worst argument I've ever heard, and I've heard some terrible ones. I mean, you could check out I did a few Flat Earth Logical Analysis podcasts. One of them, I think, is titled Worst Flat Earth Debate Ever. That one had some doozies. But these are new lows here. So is he alleging that everyone working at NASA is a volunteer? Neil deGrasse, like everybody peddling the conspiracy is a volunteer? So he has zero money, Neil deGrasse Tyson has zero money, astrophysicists are all dead broke. Like, what's the median salary of an astrophysicist? He's alleging it's zero? I mean, what is this guy talking about? And even from his micro expressions are tough because he's oscillating from completely defeated, his subconscious recognizing that he was just made to look a fool by a flat earther on national television, and between just his ego spiraling out of control and him doing any kind of damage control he thinks possible. So he thinks that Mark Sargent is alleging that the flat earth conspiracy makes billionaires or millionaires out of every single person peddling the conspiracy. Mark Sargent actually makes the opposite point, that none of them are actually in on it, obviously, like any conspiracy. But when you're this much of a coincidence theorist, like this astrophysicist, where there's just no brain activity, I mean, this guy seems to be relatively close to brain dead. I know that's an ad hominem in a way, but that wasn't part of my argument. He's not really able to make any logical points. Would you say that's somebody with a lot of mental activity or not? Because, again, this has nothing to do with the shape of the earth. What he's saying doesn't even make any sense. He's saying that if in all conspiracies, everybody involved has to be compensated at the highest level, because if he were in on the conspiracy and he was peddling it, he expects NASA to pay him billions of dollars. What was his pay stub from NASA? He was compensated. Again, that doesn't mean there is or isn't a conspiracy, but is he pretending he wasn't compensated? Like what is he talking about?
He's even wearing thongs.
Yeah, I can't even afford pants.
What you're saying is the cover-up would involve millions and millions of people, and I go the exact opposite. I'm saying compartmentalization, need to know. This is one of those things where less is more. You would absolutely keep the fewest amount of people involved. 99% of all the people that are working at NASA don't know anything. They polish capsules and they build fuel systems and they build rockets. The only guys that need to know are the telemetry guys and those guys above them. Scientists, pilots, all the space agencies, except for the high brass, they don't need to know anything. And by the way, NASA gets a budget of $52 million a day.
I've done telemetry. That's his response. And again, you can see how this poor goofball is so triggered, so insecure. It's all about him. I worked on those projects, those high altitude balloons. I worked for NASA. I've done telemetry. I mean, he's incapable of even comprehending the points Mark Sargent is bringing forward. He's so egotistical and narcissistic. He can't consider even the possibility that he was wrong or hoodwinked in any way. He does not question his church. He does not question scientism in any way. And that's why he's not even able to just suspend his biases and heavy indoctrination. His religious fervor is burning so bright, he can't even suspend it momentarily to consider what Mark Sargent is saying. The mark of an educated mind is the ability to consider a concept or idea as true without believing in it. And of course, this goofball, he's not even anywhere near that mental level. There's just really not a lot of mental activity going on here because he can't even understand what Mark Sargent is saying. I've done telemetry. I mean, telemetry in general is just recording and transmitting readings of an instrument. So you're just collecting data. So Mark Sargent, again, I think Mark Sargent is assuming that this astrophysicist has at least a children's level understanding of basic logic and reason, basic English comprehension, and might not be triggered to oblivion and beyond to the point where he can't even handle a regular conversation that's not even an intellectual conversation. Mark Sargent is not saying that this astrophysicist has never collected any kind of data from instruments or processed it. He's saying that at if the flat earth conspiracy is true, only the people at the highest levels would know about it. So the supervisors, so to speak, of the telemetry department of the highest levels of NASA that could verify where again, in the Apollo missions or whatnot, where all of these things are going. So this guy's done telemetry for the Apollo missions? I don't think so. He's too young. And so he's not even understanding Mark's point. He just heard the word telemetry, instantly got triggered, and then because of his narcissism, well, I've done telemetry. I worked for NASA. I worked on that program. Like, it's just so silly. They picked the most insecure goofball to do this interview, and Mark Sargent is just mopping the floor with him, which just adds to the hilarity. If Mark Sargent is wrong about the conclusion of the flat earth, it's just hilarious how he's just intellectually mopping the floor with this astrophysicist who, if he believed his church on the shape of the world, and that happened to be correct. He might be correct by accident, but he's just an intellectual midget when it comes to even talking to Mark Sargent, who, by his own admission, is not anywhere near a super genius of any kind. So it's all quite hilarious.
I think it was been up to $54 million a day. There's money to be had here, but it's not just about money.
Well, but someone has to be making it. So I guess one of the points here is what I'm trying to make.
Someone has to be making it? Of course they're making it. Does he really think everyone at NASA volunteers? I mean, I don't understand, like, this lack of just basic mental functioning from this astrophysicist. I don't understand what he's alleging here. Someone has to be benefiting. So he doesn't think any professors in academia make money? All college professors are volunteers? There's no such thing as tenure, pensions, they don't receive salaries. Nobody's making, I don't know. This guy doesn't know how, it's just really bizarre, actually. I actually kind of feel bad for this poor guy. I mean, it's clearly he's that insecure. I don't know. It's really sad now. It's moved from funny to sad now.
Is that, we can always go back and forth. You can not believe what I'm saying, and that's fine. That's not the point. Sure. What the point is, when we do in science, we create experiments that are reproducible. I can go out and tell anyone when a lunar eclipse is happening, and you can see that the moon is going to look curved. You can see that as the shadow passes over the moon, it is not flat.
All right, so a lot of presuppositions there. But in general, does this goofball not understand that all of the ancient civilizations had very, very precise predictions of eclipses and astronomical events using a flat Earth cosmology? I mean, this guy is just this silly? So he's pretending his scientism is science. Obviously, that's a staple of scientism priests. They pretend their scientism is actual, real science. But if you're going to use the metric now, so before he said he believes the Earth is a globe, he used round, but basically a globe because of photos from the accused. That's why he believes it. And now he's saying because of predictability. So does that mean he would believe in a flat Earth? Because does he just not know? Is he that clueless about the ancients and their very, very extensive knowledge of astronomy and astronomical events? It's really, I mean, this guy hasn't made a single legitimate point. Now he's saying the shadow over the moon, which he's presupposing is the Earth. So obviously he doesn't know. I mean, I'm actually surprised he made that point. I mean, this is the most cognitive function he's shown this entire segment. I mean, it's quite shocking, actually. But again, how does a shadow prove anything in either direction? Obviously it doesn't prove a flat Earth, but how does it prove a globe? So he needs to spend more time looking at NASA material, and he's an astrophysicist, and he doesn't know about opaque astronomical bodies, opaque celestial bodies. He doesn't know about the visible light spectrum, or is this another case of him being intellectually dishonest? Because if there are, well, I mean, according to NASA, there are astronomical bodies that are not on the light spectrum visible to humans, similar to infrared and things of that nature. So if there are infinite other astronomical bodies, they could be passing in front of the moon and you would get an opaque result. How does that prove it's the Earth? How does that prove the Earth is a globe? Again, if the shadow is the Earth, then yes, that is good evidence for it. Again, there are much better arguments to make for the heliocentric globe model. I don't know why he doesn't know about any of them, but again, the very, very poor choice to go on and talk to a flat earther, because he's just being embarrassed very poorly here. But perhaps I'll do a dedicated episode on eclipses and all of the different possibilities there. But yeah, he's presupposing these faith-based presuppositions of all these different things, and then he's basically using these circular reasoning arguments because of ABC, which he presupposed. That means XYZ, and you can use ABC to prove XYZ. XYZ proves ABC. But if they're all presuppositions, how does that actually prove they are what he's purporting they are? Again, you'd have to be at a certain basic mental capacity to understand these things. Clearly, this astrophysicist is not.
It's actually, there's an edge to it. I can say, you know what, for $500, you can buy an off-the-shelf balloon, a tank of helium, and attach an iPhone or a Google phone, but sometimes the Samsungs catch fire, that you can see the curvature for yourself.
But they've actually done that. So there's a whole bunch of hot air balloon footage showing a flat horizon. So did he just debunk himself here? I mean, this guy's just this guy's probably, I don't know. A lot of these flat earth logical analyses have been terrible, but this guy might actually be the worst. I mean, this is bad.
But you haven't given me an experiment that I can do to show what you're saying.
But he wasn't asked. He was too busy being interrupted because this guy's playing gotcha. He never even asked for one. Now he's saying it wasn't given. But he just debunked himself because, again, Mark Sargent actually did mention the hot air balloon footage. So the exact same thing that this goofball is telling Mark Sargent to do, Mark Sargent already said was done. Not by him, not by flat earthers, by just people sending up hot air balloon footage showing flat horizon. Now he's saying you can send a hot air balloon up and it'll see a curved horizon, when clearly that is not true. Because again, this guy just doesn't know anything about lenses, optics. I mean, nothing. I don't know. He doesn't seem to know anything about anything, so I don't know.
Okay, let's start off real quick. I don't know how much time we have, but let's run them down real quick. Long distance photography. That'd be the first one. It's the most obvious one that flat earthers jump.
Actually, Mark Sargent just made a huge flub there. Why? I mean, I guess he figured he already mentioned the hot air balloons, but he should have really said that, yeah, the hot air balloon footage shows a flat horizon. Because again, but not that it wouldn't, because again, this astrophysicist doesn't have any knowledge of just basic trig. I mean, we're talking basics here. We're talking basics here. If the Earth is that big, if it's a 25,000, if it's that big of a globe, you wouldn't see curvature at that low height. Again, flat earthers try to pretend that proves a flat Earth. No, it doesn't. Because if the globe is that large, you wouldn't see curvature at that height. And the astrophysicist doesn't even know that. It's kind of bizarre. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Neil deGrasse Tyson does know that because of the silly arguments that he's put forth. But anyway, again, in that area, there are certain things that were stated here, and the astrophysicist is just completely clueless. But let's see how he rebuts what Mark Sargent is going on about here with the long-distance photography.
Yeah, we just saw an image that I took.
Sorry, what?
We just saw an image on screen that I took that shows it's curved, but continue.
Oh, got it.
Wait, what image? Okay, so the image that they showed here, okay, so it looks like it's taken, I mean, it's actually quite deceptive because they have a circular image here and a circle cutout. He said he took it. Now, I don't know if that means that he was actually up there taking it, or this was a camera mounted on whatever hot air balloon device or satellite that he's alleging that took the photo. So he doesn't know anything about lenses. So how would a fisheye lens prove curvature? He doesn't know that the Felix Baumgartner jump was filmed with a fisheye lens. So he thinks that so he took a photo, but he doesn't know anything about optics, or he does. And this is just the most disingenuous argument ever presented. But I'm not giving that guy that much credit because he really does seem that insecure and narcissistic. I wouldn't put him past him to have Dunning-Kruger so severe that he never actually looked into how optics work. But I don't know.
Since photography, that'd be the first one. It's the most obvious one that flat earthers jump at,
we just saw an image
the curvature. Sorry, what?
We just saw an image on screen that I took that shows it's curved, but continue.
Oh, got it.
An image that I took. Again, the narcissism out of control. He took the image. It proves since he's the one who took it. But he's so clueless he doesn't even know about fisheye lenses. Just like if somebody takes a photo of Bigfoot. Oh, well, they took the photo of Bigfoot. That proves Bigfoot is real. That proves it's real. So silly, it's funny.
Let's say the curvature of the Earth is what mainstream says, which is 8 inches per mile squared. That's not supposed to be daunting. It's 8 inches per mile, which means at 3 miles, it's 3 times 3, which is 9 is 72, and 10 times 10, it goes further and further to where at 50 miles, you're talking about almost 1,700 feet of curvature. And that's you're looking forward and back. Don't look about left and right now. Forward and back, which means that a boat should go over the curvature of the Earth. It goes behind the curve.
And then you could already see that this guy's having some severe trouble understanding even just this basic spherical trig. Like, he just the comprehension's just not there. Is this guy some hired actor off the street that they got to pretend was an astrophysicist? Actually, I'm going to look him up right now. Huh, it looks like this guy actually is a real astrophysicist. On his website, or a website with his name, it says, I am an astrophysicist cosmologist, currently a research fellow at the Research School of Astronomy and Astrophysics, Mount Stromlo Observatory at the Australian National University. Undergraduate studies in physics, philosophy, and theology at the University of Notre Dame, Indiana, and my PhD at Mount Stromlo University, the Australian National University, Canberra, Australia. Huh. Interesting. So this guy supposedly is not an actor. Supposedly he is who they said he is, so he's just that clueless. Huh.
It should be gone and gone forever. And yet, and I would have been totally with you there 10 years ago, but HD technology has changed that to where we can see objects way, way further. We can see objects over the hill, and don't start up with mirages, because we can see these in all weather conditions, all light conditions, almost all distance conditions. We can target them with beam radar, we can target them with infrared, and we can destroy them with military technology. I have experts that will testify to this effect. We can do this all day long. That is a test you can absolutely do on the ground. You don't need space to do it.
All right.
How's that for stuff?
Listen, we'll have to leave that debate there. Head to our Facebook page.
So I guess they recognize that this goofball astrophysicist had no rebuttal. He's just sitting there looking dumb, and they want to immediately end the segment there. And Mark's got this grin on his face because he knows exactly what just happened. Now, what's interesting is only the astrophysicist seems to be extremely triggered. The other anchors or the TV personalities here sitting there, it's hard to tell whether they're just sitting there in a cognitive dissonant stupor, or they're genuinely curious, or whether the subconscious was tripped to disrupt their idiot box programming. I can't really tell, but it's just Mark's face tells the whole story here of this so-called debate on their Conspiracy Week program where they're not even hiding their intentions.
And vote again. Has this debate changed your mind on whether the Earth is flat or not? As well, do you believe in chemtrails? Well, tomorrow we'll be debunking the chemtrail conspiracy theory as part of our...
Debunking the chemtrail conspiracy theory, which is now, of course, changing the name to geoengineering doesn't mean chemicals aren't being sprayed in the sky. I mean, I don't know, Studio Ted, does not seem like a very intelligent program.
Next segment on Conspiracy Week, head to our Facebook page and take the poll to cast your vote. A huge thank you to both Mark and Brad for joining us today.
Thank you. I like being here in person. I appreciate it. And I say we take Studio 10 on location. We'll launch a balloon and we'll go see the curvature for ourselves.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yep.
We'll launch a balloon and see the curvature for ourselves. So what is he? So he's gonna put that fisheye lens on it. So this clueless goof, has he never been on a hot air balloon ride himself without having to rely on the camera? I don't know. This guy's as silly as they come. I actually ended up feeling bad for him. Not just because of just his lack of mental capacity, but just his narcissism is so extreme. Everything's all about him. It's really, really sad to have to live life that insecurely, where your identity is that closely tied with the Church of Scientism, and just no critical thinking or deductive reasoning of any kind. But yeah, good for Mark Sargent. He made a fool of another scientism goofball yet again. It's just so funny how he can do this without actually proving the Earth is flat, and he can make all of these people look so silly. It's really, really funny. But I hope you guys enjoyed another edition of the MINDSHOCK podcast. I get a lot of requests to do a lot of different logical analyses, so feel free to continue sending them. I'll keep doing them. If you enjoy the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you like the podcast, hit that like button, share it across social media platforms, of which you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic logical analysis, co-podcaster requests, questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section. And if you aren't getting notifications, feel free to just go to youtube.com/MindShock and see all the podcasts there. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.